So we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll also take a moment of silence to honor our men and women in uniform and those 13 service members who were killed in Afghanistan. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We've got a full board, hence a quorum. Any conflict of interest disclosures that board members would like to voice before we dive into the agenda? Seeing none, just if something should come up, just raise your hand and disclose. And we've got some adjustments to the agenda. What you'll see on your table here is a thank you letter for the large Adirondack chair that was placed in the Aquatic Park. Joe also included the health officer's most recent public service announcement from last Friday that is on our website and is also posted on Facebook regarding the red status of Franklin County. What else, Joe? What did I miss?
One other adjustment, Madam Chair, at the end of the agenda, when you get to executive sessions, I would request that legal counsel be moved ahead of labor negotiations.
Okay.
Attorney Langsdorff, that's another commitment.
But on the agenda, we have got Craig Sargent here present to discuss. What do you want to discuss first? We've got town office, post office building listed first.
Yes, that's what I'd like to discuss first.
Go ahead, you're on the floor.
Thanks. So Steve, that's going to go on in just a few minutes. Every one of us that tried to get a parking space for over a decade now in front of the post office. One of the things that we start to see now is trucks pulling up on the sidewalk. Saw a guy get out the other day, 75 to 80 years old, who we shouldn't have been there, but parked over the disability spot, ran inside. You know, there were no parking spaces. He would have to go down, not to want furnish, but he would have literally had to go down to furnish sheets to have a parking spot. I drove around behind the Chamber of Commerce. That was full. My point is, we have a real issue. The number one issue in town with traffic is congestion. The number one reason for the congestion is not the IGA, the highest traffic place. They have off-street parking. The number one reason for the problem on parking on Main Street is twofold. Number one, you have one disabled parking spot in front of the post office. You have two that are regular spots in front of the post office. And we've done a little bit of homework, not enough to tell you this definitively, but it appears to us that one town of this size, meaning Rangeley, Aquatic, and the 3 plantations, people would get a lot of people, as you know, in Aquatic, so we did that in Rangeley. So when you look at what the needs are, it's pretty substantial. It's substantial for a few reasons. Number one is safety. But remember, I said the number one reason for the problem on Main Street is congestion. The number two reason is there is no real great spot for in-town parking. So my proposal, which I'm going to hand out to you in a second, is going to show you a way that we can alleviate that. These two maps are the same. And just to, I know you know exactly where you are, but this is the Town of Lake Motel. And so, again, the Town of Lake Motel, not labeled accordingly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. They're the same lots, but this is the Town of Lake. So Town of Lake right here. So there appears to be a field across the street from the Town of Lake. In actuality, it was 3 separate purchases. It was Zelda Clark's parents that had a house there. And I donated that to the town of Rangeley. That's the one, that's number 33 over by the Richards property. And we donated that back in the days when the fire department could go in and have the practice burns. And it was fantastic. They probably burned that thing 5, 6, 7 times. They'd go in, start it on fire, and they had new equipment with the masks and everything. By the time that we donated the building in the center on 34 to them, there were issues at the state and federal level with asbestos. And so they weren't able to do that. We simply tore the building down. On the third lot, you see that's the smallest one, 35 to the right side. That was a vacant property my whole life. So I never saw a building where it was too young to recall one on number 35. That's the next building over would be Montel Oaks, for those of you who know Monty. And the next property that would be Cubby and Shed. So just to put that in perspective, I think it was last week that I acquired, no, that's not true. Last week was seminars. So about 2 months ago, I purchased lot 44A through a business that I own. It's a real estate holding company. It's referred to as Telesys. So it probably has 30-some tax bills that some of you. And so I was trying to extend the amount of road frontage that I had, not knowing the exact requirements that were going to be needed. So it's not a lot of acreage, but it's the 3 lots on Route 4, total exactly 350 feet. Only the lot furthest to the left, lot 33, has been surveyed. I'm about ready to do in the next year or so the other 3. So if any of you recall the new Hannaford building down to Turner, probably, I don't know, a decade or so ago now, I owned all of that land from the bridge to where the Hannaford building was eventually built. And I've learned quite a bit. You need to have, when you build a new facility like we're talking about, they really want you to have 500 feet of what's referred to as clear vision in both directions. So if you're at the Town of Lake Motel, you can look all the way up to Priscilla's, at the top of Cemetery Hill, clear, unobstructed view, and obviously at 1,500 feet, you have a direction. That is critical that you have both a means of egress and a means of ingress. So you need to have an out and an in, and I don't think there's any other property on Main Street in Rangeley that affords that. So I've kept it all these years, and we know a couple of things. We'll share a couple of things. Number one, the post office is owned by a gentleman that I personally don't know down in Florida. So is he a Florida resident? I think so. Am I telling you that definitively? No, I'm not. Does it make any difference? No. So that lease, or I should say, US Post Office leases normally go for 30-year periods. They're done 10 years in increment, but usually when you're spending millions, it's a 30-year contract with the federal government. At the end of the 30 years, because they have no interest in normally building a new one, so at the end of the 30 years, it's quite normal to have it extend for at least one period, and for a 20-year period, not for a 30-year period. So when you go into the post office tomorrow, the next day, and you look at the big painting up there, I should have looked, didn't even think of it today, but it either says 1971 and 1973 that was painted. My point is that I know the lease is coming up in April of 2023. I also know, as you do, that we probably don't have the time to get the federal government on board to allow us the time that we need for blueprinting, planning board approvals, all of those things, and still have time to build it. So I'm not here to talk, with you ad nauseum tonight. I'm simply here to lay out a few things that we have clear understandings of. One of those understandings would be that without a unanimous support of the 5 of you, and I don't expect that vote tonight, but I certainly would like to have it in 2 weeks or 4 weeks because 2023 is coming pretty quickly at you and at me. So if I have a unanimous support from the board, that would be great. And then I would proceed. I would then like a letter from the Board of Selectmen strongly recommending that they support the project. It is not personal. It would have been personal 20, 30, 40 years ago. I'm too old now, just absolutely too old. If it's 3-2, it's 4-1 in favor, 2-3 against, doesn't matter. If it's not unanimous, I'm just not going to spend my time investing in something where I don't have the total support. So no threats made there. I'm just here to say, I have an idea, I have a vision, and I would like to pursue that, but I would only do so if it made sense. So I think we have plenty of road frontage, excuse the cold, more than anybody else. I think on Main Street that isn't, I don't mean to say burdened with buildings, but, and you just have to tear them down. You know, it's a lot easier to tear these down to $150,000 or whatever the purchase was, than it would be to buy some of these houses now. I think because you have to basically have 3 or 4 in a row to have the same amount of road frontage. So first, before I move on to the rest of this presentation about the post office, any questions so far about what we've said? Oh, yes.
So what is the project you're proposing? Because I don't think I've heard that.
No, that's okay. So I'm proposing to
Sorry.
build, no, just my clarity. I'm proposing to build one of 2 things, either a new United States postal facility. Facility meaning one of several things. If the people in Aquasic, meaning the owners of that, want to keep that post office, by God, I'm not going to touch it. If the people of Aquasic said, hey, we've only got 3 years to go, they've told us they're not redoing things that I wouldn't know, well, then I would build one for both, but that's not what I'm here about. I'm here to build a post office for Rangeley and the 3 plantations. That's what my proposal is tonight. So, number 2, besides the location and understanding the importance of seeing 500 feet in clear vision, both directions, because those are deal breakers if you don't have that. Where you have 1 disabled spot now, I think we would have 5 or 6. Where you have 2 parking spaces that are used as often for either the Red Onion or Parkside Main restaurants, which nothing wrong with that. Everybody's just trying to find a place to park. You have 2 spots. I think the number is closer to 32 spots based on the population. Again, Rangeley and the 3 centers of Sandy River, Dallas, and Rangeley Plantation. Okay. So I'm then going to conflate that Ethna into a second possibility. Since we're going to either build this or not, but on the assumption that we go ahead and that the federal government works with us and we get to the point where, yes, we can build a brand new facility, that would be a special architectural eye popper. In other words, we're not just going to build another building. The difference between a beautiful looking property and one that is not so is usually 10–15% on the overall cost of the project. I want to make sure that if I'm associated with it, has a certain look. So then I'm asking you to understand that the safety, because you know what we'd have there for lights, we would have let's see, again with a strong vote from the board, from the people, the town office. Then we can move ahead with our local state reps, our local state senators, and then we can have another team moving ahead with the US reps and the US senators. If you don't get them involved on a post office is usually owned where one person owns 5, 10, 15, 20 of them. That's the way it is a lot. So it's very political. So not to waste your time, but remember when they were building a few years ago the Border Patrol facility here? I don't know how many of you know, but like Smokey and Ace at A1 in conjunction with Scotty and Dave at M&H and a couple of other partners put in a fantastic proposal. And realize I'm being taped, so I'll watch what I say, but the bottom line is, they never knew if they won by $3 million, $5 million, they lost by $500,000. It's usually, I don't want to say inside job of the camera. It's usually somebody that's already well connected. So it's not like you open up the envelopes, here's what everybody did. This is, the winner. It's usually decided thousands of miles away, 1,500 miles away in Washington, D.C. So now the conflation. If at the same time you believe, I don't have the knowledge that you have, if you believe that you've outgrown this facility, and if you believe that you don't have enough space for police, if you believe you don't have enough space for firemen and women, if you don't believe you have enough space for a proper meeting room, because some of these meetings that you have, I'm sure, are heated. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a facility that had seating of 30, 40, 50 people? Maybe it's a little bit elevated, kind of like the movie theater is, but not to that degree. Wouldn't it be fantastic to have a big screen TV right up in the front? Again, the difference between building a facility that lasts 100 years or this one that is sad after 50 years is 15%. I want to build it right so it's around, when the 22nd century comes. So you would either have needs or you don't. But I believe if you look and you say, this is how much square footage we have right now, this is how much we would like to have. And then, Steve, if we can pass this next item out. Oh, does everybody have one?
Yes.
And did it go all the way around to here?
I don't know that it picked up.
But he's got all kinds of.
Everybody over there have one?
Ethan needs one.
We have enough of those. So again, I'm not here telling you a lot of stuff that you don't already know. But if you look since 1950 at our population, and you go to the lines of data at the very bottom, it shows that 1950, there was 1,228 people. That's the greatest population we've had in Rangeley in the last 71 years. So, and I'm not going to take you through year by year. That's dumbing down. I'm not going to do that. So if we get to the end and we see that in 2020, Rangeley's population was 1,169, that's 59 people less today than in 1950. What's happening to our kids? Right? Same amount of people are dying pretty much. They're going away. Some are fortunate enough to return to some businesses like Steve's and like mine, but a lot don't return. So in any event, what I'm handing this out for is this. You all have the ability to look forward. You didn't have to look forward in really any of these years. You're seeing 1950 to 2020, and the population, yes, it's gone up. Yes, it's gone down. Primarily, we're right where we were 70 years ago. I'm here to verify that my opinion is that that is about to change for the first time. It is going to change substantially when we get to 2030. And if all of us are still here, we're not going to see a 5 or 7% gain. We're going to see a population shift. Let me just take you to one thing, just as an example. And I understand everybody knows these things, but sometimes just to hear it the second time doesn't hurt. In the state of Massachusetts, if you die, you start to pay an inheritance tax, meaning your kids. I die, my son, he has to start to pay an inheritance tax at $1 million, right? I mean, a lot of houses in Massachusetts are $1 million. So what's going to happen if Maine is at 5.5 million and the state of Massachusetts is 1 million? How many hundreds of these homeowners that are owned second cottages, but I mean, they're nice as people's houses or nicer. How many of those people, and I'm not talking about next year or the year after, I'm talking about this year, right now, next 60 to 90 days, you will have
20, 30 people move here just from the state of Massachusetts. They're not going to tell you they're moving here for inheritance tax purposes. I'm telling you, the difference between 1 million and 5.5 million, that's 4.5 million. And I'm telling you that the current president of the United States would like to have the capital gains go up by 43%. If that happens, that's 43% of the difference, 43% of 4.5 million, that's 1.8, 1.9 million dollars. They can't afford to stay living in Massachusetts if they're 75, 80, 85 years old. And the smart ones, if they're 65 or even younger and they have any health issue, you're going to be managing a different town than you're managing today. That's my opinion. It will either be factual or it will be, a mistake. So do we understand that you don't build a post office for the population we have? You don't build extra space for the town municipal building. If you need extra space, you build for where you believe we're going to be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. And that means you have to have quality. Maybe the building's expandable. Maybe you only build it a certain size now, but it's already architecturally drawn out to have an addition put on, and you plan the whole thing out. So my point is, the vision part's easy. Getting people to go along with it, even the 5 of you, that's okay. That's the difficult part. So almost done this part. What else do? We would make sure that we would be the leading example of adhering to the town's upcoming and new, or whatever the comprehensive plan is at the time. We're not going to cut any corners. We're going to try to be the best people to lead by example. And so we want to say that to you right up front. So will I be here a few more times? Yes. At some point in time, would it be the attorneys, architects? Yes, it would be. Okay. Just imagine for a second, dreaming with our eyes open. Imagine that you have a nice big office or a couple of offices and they're rented by the state of Maine. Well, if somebody's already got a work office, right? You don't have to pull that out. But what if the state of Maine had one nice office and they had a remote, DMV? They had some space for DEP, for LERC, for anything else state related. Oh my God, that's powerful. They would have beautiful parking. They would have beautiful lights. Everything. Look at the sidewalk there. Now, let me just toss this in so we can move on to subject 2. If you take a look at the sidewalk when you drive down there the next time, you'll see that the best parts of it go like this, and there are holes everywhere. Now, that's not going to cost $10,000, $20,000. There is a huge advantage in that we are a national scenic byway. Sometimes the reason I say 7 years ago, for tax purposes, I changed my residency to Nevada. So that's why, you don't see me at the town meetings, not voting, and all those things. So in any event, understand that I think a lot of the expense of this could be borne by the federal government. They're about to have money flowing like no one has ever seen, or most people have never wanted. And so without going too deep into that, there is a real opportunity, I think, here to do something that would be a combination of the federal government and, the town and private enterprise. So food for thought. Wouldn't it be nice also if somebody had to go to the bathroom, they didn't have to run down the small Chamber of Commerce building? Or maybe the chamber isn't open at a particular time, or whatever the situation is. Wouldn't it be nice if there were nice, clean, spacious public restrooms? I think so. Why wouldn't you have it all in one facility? Yes, you'd have your own private facility for the people who work in that building, but you'd have thought enough that you're going to have beautiful, clean restrooms. Most important thing you need a meeting room. I'm not saying anything about this. You simply will need a meeting room someday where everybody can participate 30, 40, 50 people. If you feel you need more, we should build it accordingly. So those are some of the things. I have so many other ideas about that combination post office and municipal building. I'm simply saying, if in 2 months you say, we're not interested in the municipal building, or we can't financially do it, whatever the example is, I'm saying, please just let me know so that I can move on to the other things I feel I can do with the United States Post Office facility. Okay, and item number 1, that's the lengthy one. So the other one's much quicker. Anybody, question?
I guess what, you mentioned financially, I mean, what would your financial expectation be from the town if, you had, five?
Yeah, I wouldn't be, I can't imagine going to the town and saying, I'd like to contribute 200,000, 500,000. What I can see happening is that the federal government might have some loans. So if instead of using my cash, I can see that, wow, if they've got something that's 2%, well, maybe I want to borrow money at 2%, maybe I don't want to borrow money at 2%. We'll have lots of challenges along the way. Money won't be one of them. So I'm saying, I'm not coming to the town of Rangeley to say, help fund the project. I need a partner. I don't need a partner. What I need is, well, I don't need a financial partner. I need all the other partnerships. I need the support, and I need to work with the politicians, because this is going to be a political job. So I can't come to you with beautiful architectural drawings and spend $150,000 on that, not knowing whether it's going to be a post office, municipal building, one or the other, both. Don't know if the federal government would say, our building has to stand alone. They've said that before. No problem. At what point, is it a 10-foot space in between the buildings? Would that make them happy? So all kinds of things like that we could talk about ad nauseum, but there won't be Craig Steichen coming to the town office, or the taxpayers of Rangeley saying, would you help? Would you help? Now, you do have that program called TIF,
Yes.
something like that. I don't know enough about it to talk intelligently at this point, but I do know that sometimes that works out well for particular projects. So I'm not saying no to that. I'm telling you I'm uneducated about that. But in my mind, that's the only possibility of the town. Yes.
Steve?
Great, fabulous idea.
Thank you.
From a political standpoint, I think it's important to note that we govern budgets, we govern certain things, but something of this magnitude needs to be brought to the town's
We know.
legislative body.
Yes.
That being said, I think it would be great to have all of us on board with something like this so that we could encourage them to vote in that direction. But you need to add that time frame to your proposal and your mental thought process
Yes.
to move forward.
We have basically, this is Craig Steichen mind only. We haven't turned this over to attorneys yet. And accountants and CPAs, architects. I'm allowing in my mind 9 to 12 months to go through the planning board process. And I'm allowing another 9 to 12 months to go through the town of Rangeley's voting process. So if you had to ask me what I truly believe, I would say that April of 2023 is about 1 year quicker than we can do this in a nice, relaxed, professional timeframe. In my mind, I think I would be building sometime in 2023, ready to move into by the fall of 2024.
May I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Knowing that there are private individuals that own the current post office and border patrol and federal buildings throughout the state,
Yes.
how do you propose to slow the renewal process down for the current one?
Yeah, I wouldn't slow it down. I would, if we get the support of the town, I think it would be time for me to talk with the gentleman to say, there are several things that can happen here, if he will talk to me. One is he honors his whole lease for the next 2 years. And he says he wants to sell the building, which I really don't have any interest in. But in any event, would I buy the building? Sure, I would, if it was reasonable. So that would extend us out that extra 12 or 18 months that we might need for planning purposes.
Yeah.
So that's possibility number one. Possibility number two is if there's anything that the town needs, and I'm not passing this off to you, I'm saying is a matter of what I believe to be fact, you need more in-town parking. And so what better place? If you look at the, not so much the Furbish House, because they do pretty well between their own off-street parking and the main street parking there. But if you look at Parkside, Maine, even though they have that nice space out back, it's not enough. If you look at the Red Onion, yeah, they have some, but they don't have enough. Now the new store where Genasi's was, it's going to be prime. I didn't want to spend $185,000 on the bakery, you know, I didn't want to pave it really for another $104,000 and have 280 something thousand in there. By God, what good's a multi-million-dollar restaurant if you don't have the parking? So what I'm saying to you is, if you come along and you bought that, what I call the bakery, 2455 Main Street, and you'd said, how much would you contribute? Oh, that would have been a number, right? I can't answer for other people, but I'm saying we have to think outside of the proverbial box to say almost everybody needs parking. And I think there are some people who would actually pay for it. Maybe they pay you over a 20-year period, but we need to have a lot more parking. What's that answer? What we do to that guy? We negotiate with him.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, Craig, what you're asking for from the select board is an enthusiastic blessing if you privately fund an up-to-date superior building in a superior location, in my opinion, that will help mitigate parking problems, safety issues, and snow removal problems for Keith and his team. And you just want us to agree with you that it's a good idea and say, yeah, we'll give you our blessing.
Yeah, I need the planning board to say that. I need the town manager to say that. I need the sewer and the water people to say that it is reasonable, that it can be done. And without that, there's no chance that I'm going to have the ability to get all the local state reps, state senators involved. And believe you me, not so much if we do something on a municipal building and they don't do the post office, but the post office, that needs real power on your side. So that one has to have Susan Collins, that one has to have.
I guess what I'm saying is I haven't heard anything negative out of this presentation in my mind. On top of that, I've always wanted to see business stretch that into town. There we've lost one, and more adequate lighting for that sidewalk, and that sidewalk is going to get improved.
Yes.
And yeah, I'd like to see the town get dressed up on top of all the other things that I just mentioned. So
Right.
if you're talking about from this selectman, I don't need to hear points 3 and 4, although I want the information. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I hope somehow we can make it move forward.
Good, thank you. But you understand, tonight, I felt that my role was just to give you some bullet points, not ask you for a vote tonight. That was
Right.
just so wrong. And honestly, maybe you can come up with 5 or 6 reasons or items of concern. That's no problem. They should all be addressed before whatever's built over there. So.
Any other questions for Craig before he moves on to fireworks? Good. Thank you.
Fireworks is quite easy. On the fireworks, here we are, 2021 is gone by. I believe the town of Rangeley threw in $8,000 and Sergeant Sports Pub and Grub threw in $5,000 for a total of 13. I had said to Mr. Roach, I said, if the town of Rangeley will have a 4-year fixed budget of $12,000, the pub, that business and myself, sole owner, would put in $8,000. So we could move the fireworks program from $8,000 to $20,000 for a 4-year period. The other thing that we all know is it's called a semi-quincentennial. That's the 250th anniversary of the United States that occurs obviously on July 4th, 2026, 5.5 years from now. you're going to have a very difficult time finding people just to shoot fireworks. The fireworks presentations are gonna be a lot more expensive. So I'm telling you definitively what I will do for 4 years, dead or alive. In other words, it's willed, it'll be put in the trust. The money will be there to back up what I'm saying. Secondly, I'm not prepared to say yet what I'm prepared to do at the 250th anniversary. That will be the last year that I myself make a contribution, or at least that's the last year I'm expecting to right now. So I don't need a vote. I guess I would just need a letter from you after they've discussed whether that's something. I know you'd have to take that to the town for their approval. I have no problem with how that vote turns out. You understand, I have no problem with that. I just think that with this COVID stuff and not having spent that fireworks last year, all we're pretty much doing is addressing a little bit of that money and then having some extra go in. But a $20,000 fireworks on the 3rd rather than the 4th. The 4th is just going to be, it's going to be spectacular. $20,000 is a fireworks. So that's the end of the fireworks presentation. 8 and 5 last year, it would be 12 and 8 for 20. And then in 2026, I can't tell you what I do, but I intend on getting some friends together and making sure that that's one that's remembered by every person that's alive a decade after that.
What's it gonna cost me? Tell me now.
Yeah, well, that's enough of that. You have a question, Steve?
But Craig, we're gonna be practical as we approach this, not only for your benefit, but
Yes.
the town. If we bring to them a $12,000 fireworks with a guarantee of you putting in another 8, and they say, well, geez, that's too much money.
Yes.
What if we do, will you still bring us up to a certain point? Is there some negotiation with you?
Yeah, in other words, what I'm saying to you is, if the town does 60%, I'll do 40, capping at $20,000.
Because when we get into the budget process,
Yeah, I
these
understand.
discussions are gonna.
Yeah. So if you come up with 10,800 is what the town will do, well, you take that with my 40% and there's 100. I'll give 40% if the town does 60,
Yeah.
capping at 20.
So you haven't told me, how much do I have to save up?
That's a
Because
discussion
I know you're gonna call me.
outside of meetings.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Craig.
Okay, third and final thing. Quickly. In on or about 1982 to 1984, 5 people from Rangeley, you could have been one of them, I honestly don't remember, but I remember Scandalita was one, Ed Carpenter was one, I think William Ellis from Tranit was one. I was the only person on there, I think, under 50. But 5 of us were charged by the town of Rangeley to do a 20-year look ahead, a vision for the town of Rangeley, if you would. We met for over a year, at least once a month. We did a 20 and a 50-year look ahead. For example, not to waste time, but just to put clarity to it, one of the things that we did was across from Brian Ellis's on High Street is a little 2-unit apartment house. All was owned by Odious Batchel at the time. We said tear that down, and behind that was a huge building that was owned by Russell's. Remember, the water was going, or we knew at that time, if it hadn't already gone from the Russells to, it was going to be a town of Rangeley or quasi-public situation. So we came up, one of the other things that we did was we came up with, last thing I'll share with you was for $770,000 from DC Morton's, which is down Looneyville, all the way to the Saddleback turn, $770,000 we could have gone underground power. Right? It's referred to as future value of money. Sitting here with a couple people that understand future value of money very well is all you want. But it says this. It says that if a pickup truck 1965 was $2,000, and if money doubles at 7% every 10 years, it says that truck will be worth be selling for $4,000 the next year. I mean, a decade later, then $8,000, 16, 32, 64,000. Here we are. How many people in the room are looking forward to a pickup truck of 128,000 a decade from now? But the truth of the matter is, money's predictable. So you never look at where the money is today. You look ahead to see what you're investing today, what it's gonna be worth in the future. So that $770,000 was thought to be a stupid idea. That's not personal, right? We were asked to do it. Gee, we came up with 7 strong suggestions, 3 weaker suggestions, and they didn't pass one of the things. That's okay. So here you are now, and it's the last time this can be done in the town of Grangeton. There's only 5 people, just you 5, that can ever change this. Does it matter to me if it happens? A little bit, but I'm gonna sleep pretty well if it doesn't. And that is, you'd have to shrink up that floor plan, and you'd have to go something like from the town of Lake Motel to Depot Street. If you did that, my guess is $4.5 million, as much as $5 million it would cost now. Well, 20 years from now, what does that tell you it's gonna cost? 20 million. Is that gonna happen? No, it's not. So it means that you have to coordinate the paving of the state highway with all of the things that would be done on the sewer and on the water. Because what they did here in the 80s, when they did the new plant out on Healy Pond, they dug up all the streets 1 year after the state paved, right? So the state paves those roads beautifully, side streets, and now they go in, they dig up all of that stuff, and they put all this storage stuff all through it. They repave, 2 or 3 years later, they do the town water project. There's no foresight, you see, so here you sit, 5 people. And what I'm suggesting to you is, you don't have time, as 5 people, to take on one project like that. God knows, I'm telling you, I'm a resident of Nevada, and I'm not going to get involved in that ranks. But that is a project that you'd be remembered for 100 and 200 years from now. If that has internet running through it, you've coordinated with the telephone people, you've coordinated with the sewer, the water, the state of Maine on the paving, and you never have to do it again. And you have the most beautiful town, which you already have in all of New England, and it would be more beautified. You wouldn't be looking at all those poles and all those wires. And everybody just looks at the number of 5 million and says it's too much. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know, but hard pressed to believe it might not be. But it might not be a very good investment. End of my story. The other thing I'll share with you, because I don't want to take up another 10 minutes, so I'll share one other idea right now. In a week or
Steve?
anything.
One question, Craig, all of this tonight is fabulous stuff. I wish you had been around when we were trying to get the public safety building together here, because I fought that same battle and lost. But we do have a nice public safety building. This piece of junk we're in, I'll go on record publicly and everywhere that we should never have built on this thing. We are going to have to be staring at that in the future. Mr. Roach and I had this conversation a year or so ago. In terms of the power, we are in a time where this is advantageous to do it
Yes.
because of the federal monies that are available, because of the scenic byways, because the town now currently has our own grant writer, and we should be looking at this. This is something that I would love for them to hear my words, because I do believe this is good forward thinking.
Yes. I think because of the scenic byway, the national scenic byway, I think, look at what happened on your airport project. I think there would just be millions and millions of dollars put into that. So I really think it's worthwhile to explore.
Yep, I agree. The question, the thing that concerns me the most is, and I'll just end it with this, is that where are we gonna put all the stickers if the poles are going?
We'll have
Thank you.
We'll have Belgrade
I'm in
lighting.
support of everything. and I
Put it on the back of the post office building.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Craig?
I just have a comment
Yeah, go
based
ahead.
off the tower thing. I definitely strongly agree with Craig and the underground tower. As I've been a little more focused on our downtown in this busy time we've had over the last year, the park actually brought to light for me was accessibility throughout our downtown, our walkways. The beach was one area that hit me, but I noticed it also on Main Street talking with Earl, and that comes back to handicap accessibility. And I'm quite sure there's frequent or multiple spots on Main Street that I don't think we're even close to ADA compliant, between a telephone pole and a building, to allow that individual to come through, or even individuals to walk the other necessarily. So I think it's paramount that we, not just in the idea of infrastructure, but in our walkability and our accessibility to multiple diverse individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Any other comments before we move further on in our agenda? All right.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much.
Appreciate that. Don't need it back. No, if we come back, there'll be a professional presentation and I very much appreciate those things having been prepared for me. They're real good. But if we see each other again, it will be a different topic presentation. All right. Good to see everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Moving on to number 4, review and approve meeting minutes for August 16th. Looks like it's either Shelley or Steve for a motion.
Okay, take a motion to accept the minutes for the August 16th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Shelley's motion, Steve seconds. Any further discussion, corrections, questions? All those in favor? And those abstaining? Got 3 in favor, 2 abstain, 3 in favor, 2 abstain. Any public present to speak on a non-agenda item? Moving on to boards and committees, there are numerous meeting minutes in there for your review. Any comments or questions before we move on? Consent items, we have got the Northwoods gravel grind.
Take a motion to accept the event permit for Woodlands Gravel Grind to take place on 9/11/2021 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Shelley's motion
Second.
and Ethan seconds. I think Joe made a oh, go ahead. Yes,
I just had a quick question. I noticed the police chief is the only one who signed off on it. Is there a reason?
He's generally the only one that signs off on that.
I'm so sorry, what was that?
He usually escorts them, but he's actually doing the 9/11 march up here. So since they don't really need any other public services, I just had Russ sign off on it as verification. He's aware that they are doing it while he's doing that honors march.
So will the fire department then be doing what the chief would normally be
Scott
doing after
actually
that event?
doing it. They just escort him across Route 4 and then escort him back. So everybody felt good about that.
Perfect.
awesome. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We've got a wedding in the town park. Yes,
This one I probably should abstain from
Okay.
since I'm performing the ceremony.
all right, so Ethna is involved in the ceremony and is going to abstain. Thank you.
I will say it's a wonderful, sweet little event for a dear child who spent most of his youth in my house.
Oh.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the wedding permit in Town Park on the date of 9/18/21.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions, comments? Go ahead, Shelley.
So the whole event starts at noon time to 5. Is that just set up or are they having the reception and everything like that?
Reception is not going to be there. I think it's just kind of the reception is going to be at a private location up the road. I think that's just so the family has time to congregate while everything gets set up. And
Okay.
yeah.
Joe made a comment that the Park Commission didn't have a chance to meet prior to this, but they have been polled and have given their blessing and will
That is
sign,
correct, Madam Chair.
sign off. Okay. Anything else? All right, all those in favor? And 4 in favor, 1 abstaining. And we've got one more event permit application for the ATV Club Toy Drive Giving Tree.
a motion to accept the event permit application for the Giving Tree of Rangeley of Fawcett ATV. To take place on October 9th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Shelley's motion, Ethan seconds. Questions? Comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Let's see here. So, number 7, we have got, next is a cemetery ordinance to the ordinance committee, and let's see here. So in Joe's notes, looks like there's proposed changes to the cemetery ordinance. Updates have been vetted through the cemetery committee. And they're asking for the board to approve moving this on to the ordinance committee. Yes, sir.
Again, I will need to abstain as I'm a member of the ordinance committee.
Okay, Edgar abstains from vote.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Page, where it's not page. 1, 2, 3, 4th page, number 11. An adult must always accompany children under the age of 15. Please. I mean, 5, 6, but if my grandson wants to ride up and visit and he's 11 years old, come on. I mean, I don't mind the ordinance changes when they become really germane to health, safety and whatnot, but kids who live in town, I don't want to see them go play up there. I understand the intent. However, we shouldn't be asking anybody to say to somebody who's 14, can't go visit the site of your dearly departed. So I don't know what you want to do with it, but I just find that unreasonable.
Did you want to have this? for
No, I just
future?
want to point it out to you all and get your feedback. If you all feel this is the right thing to do, they're not driving a motor, you can drive a boat unaccompanied on a large body of water up here. You follow me?
Right,
I want to just point that out. I read through this thing, 90% of it I think is valid, makes some sense. I just don't think that it does. Maybe it's because I've been to too many funerals lately. However, I just think that one, particularly in town where kids can go out there.
I'll agree with Steve on that. I have a question.
go ahead, Steve.
So I don't know where you want to go with it.
Well, let's see what we have for feedback. Go ahead, Ethan.
So I agree with what Steve said. On page whatever, under 5.5.3 decorations restricted. Number 2, it says no flowers are planted in the ground on the cemetery lot.
Yeah, I noticed that too, yeah.
Is that for weed whackers, ease of whatever?
That's not,
Go ahead.
sorry, so part of that, my understanding of that, part of my thought on that one is part of that perpetual care agreement in there, look at current shrubbery or plants that are in there, nobody takes care of it. Let's say,
My mother does.
limited people take care of the majority of the stuff, so a lot of the stuff in there right now is outgrown the actual footprint that's allowed to.
Sure.
Per that professional agreement. So part of this obviously is a restriction or a way to eliminate the need, whether it's weed whacking or other people's opinion on site, things that are outgrown, their thought, or opinion on another person's area. Try to be adjusted, obviously, this is still a draft, so it still can be adjusted.
I was just, I think I remember there was a rule, I was told there was a rule, no trees, it couldn't be like Gary Furbish's giant cedars or whatever.
Right.
But, yeah, because I'm sure I'll get asked that question if my mom can't stick perennials in front of my granddad, and that's a personal thing, I just want to know the answer to give her or whoever else.
Are you all set?
Ethna.
So I understood that that was kind of an existing rule that has been in place for a long time at the cemetery, that it was not supposed to be there, but it has never been upheld. It's something that is, and it's not. It has a little more to do with perpetual care in that there's been numerous complaints over the years of people saying, well, that's encroaching on my loved one's grave, or here's the other big one. I don't know how many times we had to hear, well, the guy who mows the grass mowed down my shrub.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It becomes kind of a liability for the town, because then people come back after us and say, well, somebody needs to replace my shrub, or somebody needs to fix my headstone because their planted bush up, the roots of it upheaved mine. It's
Yeah.
just, so my understanding was it's a long-standing rule that has just never been enforced.
That's how I, looking at, assisting Rebecca in this this part of this, but that was definitely, so myself and Chip and Rebecca, that was definitely an understanding. We've seen, that's my time of year, is it's never been necessarily enforced. Tricia definitely tried to have a conversation with us, a new stones came in, but existing definitely is difficult.
Yeah, Shelley?
There's also some hedges that look awful up there.
So I bugging off topic, there is a plan for this fall to tastefully go in there. And obviously looking at, I will say hedges primarily, or small shrubbery bushes, to bring those back to what the professional care guidelines are. Obviously, the best we're gonna do is what we can do is obviously to communicate with individuals, that family members, to understand this is our plan. Worst case scenario, we're gonna use our best judgment and at least bring that tree back to our tree shrub plant back to a reasonable and tasteful size without being disrespectful. There are some in there that definitely need to go.
Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
So another question is, so the cemetery committee made these changes?
So yes, we met, there was definitely some input within that, they haven't reviewed this document, to my knowledge. Rebecca was obviously the one that definitely drew it up, but they had conversation in it. Now, the age one, I don't know what that one, I did not see that. So, wouldn't say that.
I just was wondering where the 15-year-old came
Yeah.
from. I mean, I get it. I mean, you're 15, you should go through the driver's license. So
Right.
are they thinking that in order to drive through there and stuff? I mean, because there could be people that do a lot of vandalism that have done to certain cemeteries throughout. I just didn't know what their concept
I'll look
was
into
for
that age thing,
being
because
there.
I don't know where that came from particularly. It could be already some language in there.
Right.
I will have to go back to refer to anything. I don't have the answer for that.
Would it be helpful, I'm sorry, Sue.
Go ahead.
Would it be helpful if we made a recommendation for the age as it moves to the ordinance committee?
I think that's certainly something that would be appropriate. I mean, it's a recommendation, and the ordinance committee can take it up under discussion. I mean, perhaps, I'm not sure to what extent the police have had to get involved with cemetery happenings or whatnot, but,
I've never,
Yeah.
my time here, I've never had anything over there, whether it be Halloween or any time of year, whether there's an unattended minor or even, I've never even seen any vandalism over there personally.
well, and I was just thinking, there's a very small Wilbur cemetery on Pleasant View that is easily walkable and easy for anyone, anyone to get to that.
We have
just.
4 in town, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we do. This one, you don't need to drive to. People can, walk right up to it. So just curious to see if what was the standard before? What were you thinking? What were you?
I was going to throw the age 10 out.
I was thinking 10 or 11.
That puts you below middle school.
You okay with that? You could just give your opinion. I know you're not going to vote on it.
I'm gonna deal with it when it hits the ordinance committee. I don't think it needs to be an age restriction in there at all. I think it's a frivolous line that somebody's come up with based on no information to put. I have never heard of any vandalism in that cemetery.
Right.
Or any of the other ones.
Right, and vandalism, I'm sorry.
No.
Vandalism has no age limit.
No,
Correct.
That's a good point.
It's typically done by people much older than the age of 11, 15.
I should be on, yeah, I do remember a story about, yeah, something that did happen in the cemetery of a high school age individual, so, but it wasn't essentially vandalism, but it was.
Death doesn't care how old you are.
Correct. I'll research that this end, and I'll see.
Yeah, so,
It's my recommendation, 10 years old, if that needs to be in there, I agree with that, but I think it's frivolous, but if it needs to be in there for some liability, or the police need something to hang something on, 10 years old is what I say.
That's the only thing, sorry.
no,
That's
go
the only
ahead.
thing I was thinking was is in there because of liability, or the police have some ground to stand over or something at some point. Other than that, I agree with that, but I wouldn't even bother. It's a place of remembrance.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
So usually how it works is that, is it the committee comes to us, Joe, and asks us, for example, to present something to the ordinance committee, and then we instruct the ordinance committee? Is that how that works? Do they usually set it all out for you, or like do the corrections? I mean, where this is a revise. What's the difference from a new ordinance to a revision?
So in this case, the cemetery committee has been discussing this as a committee. And they have incorporated some rules that they have into this, and they listed out all of the cemeteries, all 4 of them, and they put those in. It's a matter of information that they've been working on for a number of years. So with a rewritten ordinance, I think that would be normal, that it would come to the board to be directed to the ordinance committee. You know, for them to go through and have a discussion on your behalf, basically what you're having now, give them any feedback that you think is germane. And then obviously it comes back to you before it's voted on at town meeting. So you'll see it once more before it makes its way to
Right.
town meeting.
The motion, moving forward?
Yeah, Ethan skipped out, so, but yeah, we do need a motion to send it to the ordinance committee.
I move we send it to the ordinance committee with a recommendation that the age limit be reduced to 10 if the town needs it for liability purposes.
Second.
All right, Steve's motion and Ethan seconds. Any other follow-up comments? All right, all those in favor? That's 4 and 1 abstain. All right, good discussion. Next, under consent items, we've got the assessing contract, and Joe, why don't you go ahead and take this one?
Hey, Madam Chair, as you recall, a couple meetings ago, we had received a proposal. We received one proposal for assessing services. The amount in the first year was $3,000 more than what we had budgeted for. You had directed me to negotiate with the person that put in the company that put in one bid. I've done that. We've talked on several occasions. And he is willing to honor what we have in the budget. He recognizes our budget position. He's willing to do the first year at 69.5 and then do his increments after that based on the 69.5. Basically, in exchange for that, he's going to allow his agents to have 2 weeks off. So instead of being here 52 weeks a year, they'll be here 50. So that's the tentative agreement that he and I worked out, and that's presented to you for your approval tonight. I do recommend to the board that you sign that for the period. And just as a final note, Madam Chair, the terms are the same as the agreement we have now. It's not
Okay, so no.
variation.
Right, any questions for Joe regarding the assessing contract before we move on to a needed vote to appoint the assessor? All right, seeing none, thank you for negotiating that down. So next we need a motion to appoint Robert J. Duplessis Jr. as the town assessor. I'm sorry.
It's okay, we didn't need a motion to enter into the contract,
Yes, we should.
we do, okay.
If the
so
board-
sorry.
No, I
Board would
appreciate
authorize
that.
you to sign. Yep.
All right, so let's start with that motion.
So moved?
Second.
This motion, Steve seconds. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is the appointment.
I move Robert J. Duplessis Jr. as our assessor for the year's term to expire June 30th, 2022. I assume that's from this point forward, correct?
All right, Steve's motion
Second.
and Ethan seconds. And all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next up, Moon Lake Road. And paving. Oh,
Madam Chair, I do have a couple of things on Moon Lake Road and the paving item. I hope to be able to come to you tonight with a formal change order for paving to extend the contract. We don't have that yet. Keith and I will be meeting with Kevin and the engineer tomorrow. But I do kind of want to prime the pump on the paving discussion. I did make a note about it in the packet. Keith and I are in favor, and Earl is too, in favor of paving the base course this fall, which is, I think, 2.5 inches. The base course, once the road's out, perhaps we'll pave that, hopefully by the end of this month, before the weather gets too bad. And then have the winter season, basically, to let that set up and settle, take a look at it in the spring, come back in and do the surface course at the end of May, 1st of June. That would require a contract amendment, therefore would be a formal change order. I don't have that to share with you tonight, so if you wouldn't mind tabling that, I just kind of wanted to prime the pump and see what your thoughts were as a board, if you're interested in pursuing that informally. That's the first part of what I'd like to talk about. Then the second part is related to paving. The old pavement that's coming up now is being stockpiled. The contractor has offered to process that for us and replace, instead of using the 4-inch leveling course of type A gravel, the small gravel, he's offering to provide that for us. So if you've been on DOT jobs, that's what they use on the top, to crush that asphalt up, put it in as a leveling course, grading course. Some of the pluses to that is that when you're under construction, it's hardly any dust. The big thing that Keith and I like about it is that once you put that in there, it would go immediately under your pavement. Every particle in that asphalt that's been processed is coated with asphalt, so it will never hold water. It will never have water in that 4-inch layer. It packs like iron is the third thing we really like. So we're at this tonight, I would like the board to consider authorizing that change. Now, there's no financial difference. It's not going to cost us anymore. So Kevin would probably need to know the next week or two if we're interested in going that direction. So that is, if I can substitute the paving action for that request, Madam Chair.
all right. Any questions for Joe regarding his request? Go ahead, Shelley.
Okay, so when you travel up there, have you noticed that there's,
Shelley, would this be a conflict of interest? Living on the road?
on the road,
I'm kidding.
there's a great big hole right in front of my parents. So does that mean that there's a water problem?
Me or you?
By all means, yeah.
So you are correct. So for your parents, so we knew going into this project, much as the state's been, some repairs history over time. Just above your parents' house, many people's old house down is a ledge. And it's, it's pretty wet. So there's always seepage in that part of the road. It always seemed to travel either the force main coming down through or another line. So it always could run through the road. Part of that, what we did find further down by more towards Tubby's old entrance,
Yeah, that one's like all. they
there's a
put
new
rocks in.
sinkhole. So
Yeah.
from those wetland ponds at Mendoya's old place in that area, from the up to your parents' house, we noticed that there is a lot more water than anticipated. So part of the corrective action there is as we dig it out, right now we'll just keep filling that hole in our binder. So this, probably today or tomorrow, when that box cut starts, what we'll do is we'll dig that down, put new gravel in, but before we do that, we'll put fabric, geotextile fabric down. So that will also be that layer that will also separate that water and help filtrate and keep that water moving rather than settling. What will happen there, one, you gain strength in that road and the integrity of that road as a whole. As long as that fabric runs, that road will come together a lot better together. So you'll have the fabric, the better drainage material, base gravel, and if you guys choose so, which I highly am in favor of and recommend along with Joe, is that reclaim material, that 4 inches of material that will go in lieu of that surface shaping gravel and then that pavement. And that will all take care of, plus the, I think for your parents' house also, there is a section of 6 inch under drain. Maybe we'll cut out that, but there's some under drain going in that area too, down the
Well,
road.
that's where they did that new part.
Right. So
That's
we're
where
gonna-
that, there's
So
like a
it'll all come-
sinkhole that's sinking right there.
So it'll all come down through, all new drainage coming down parallel with the road, rather than perpendicular across the road, because it should alleviate frost heaves.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of drainage improvements in that area, from Tubby's up to Randy Gibbons' house. So those should go away. So part of, go one step further, that part of that will allow us, if we do delay paving, which obviously there is some risk in that, when we delay that paving, we can then verify that drainage, one, has made it through winter in the spring, thaw, and understand if that road's gonna flood, don't move, and how that drainage functions, how it needs to.
Good questions to ask if we're gonna lay down some pavement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I brought this up the last time we talked about Loon Lake Road, and I am concerned about the Henderson property, because you created a dumping ground uphill of them in that swale area. I don't think it'll affect their house, but I mean, they've got substantial investment in that garage, so I don't want to see that thing heave up. Now, you mentioned briefly about the under drain and what I call the Henderson speed bumps. Because, 2/3 of the year, you go for a flight if you come down there too quickly. And it's all because of frost movement.
Correct.
Why aren't we pulling all that detritus out of there? Because I watch it, I'm going to the airport frequently, as you well know.
Right.
And I'm not seeing that stuff being yanked out of there.
You're not yet, you're correct. So right now, we pulled off that, probably a range of 12 inches of pavement out of that road so far. Everything else right now is existing. This week, they should start excavating 28 inches of that material out of there. So we'll drop down 28 inches, bring in all new material, plus for your parents' house up, that road's like about 3 feet up higher.
Mhm.
So private parents' house will they'll ramp up from,
So that
0
means
to
they're just
3
gonna
feet.
crash in the embankment when they go over the frost heaves?
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea is obviously, as you said, excavate that material, bring in new gravels, that parallel under drain will help pull that water down, hopefully away from Henderson's and down closer to the Mandolia, let's say Tuppy's old property still.
Oh, no, that's the watershed, that's the
Help
topography
bring
of
it
the
down
ground, it's
that
gotta go that way.
Bring it down the road, right.
Without ruining people's homes, and that's something we have to be mindful of.
So it's like, I said, it's a lot
I
of.
hope 28 inches, I'm sorry, Keith, I
No.
apologize. I hope 28 inches isn't an authorized number, because if you find something that, okay, just as long as I understand that correctly.
So the common figure on the plan is 28 inches. Understanding that we anticipate ledge, we anticipate other needs for revisions within that. So that's ability on a daily basis is to have that flexibility within that engineering plan to excavate more if we need to.
So
Based
this
on
is by
service.
Mr. Mandola's old house, that's like all mud. Is there like a spring in there? Is that what's feeding that comes from
So
the
I think there's
pond?
partially a spring, and then I also think, but what's in the road at that point, a spring, or obviously that wetland, those designated delineated wetlands at Mandolia's, between Mandolia and
Right.
RFA property, Rogers property.
Well, you grew up there, across the street is nothing but a mud pond.
That's all, yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's all, that whole business right there comes right down in from, believe it or not, from the top of Allen Street, comes right through the bucket brush all the way out that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Comes down from top, Pleasant Street, Allen Street comes
It
across.
does.
Well,
over
plus
those
the
neighborhoods.
much, like, right separate the school property to the Philbrook
Correct.
property.
The big runoff.
No, right.
100%, absolutely. So again, trying to, with the new culverts that are in there, establish, upsize culverts, there'll be this new cross culvert in that section also.
Mhm.
Fingers crossed. That's what we give you, fingers crossed.
So basically, if they go up that far, everyone's driveway is gonna be going like this. So does that mean more damage is gonna happen for when they're plowing and all that other stuff to these people's driveways that we're gonna have to deal with?
I'm gonna say there won't be any issues with that, but within that workability of the right of way, the idea is to plan everything the best we can, so try to eliminate as little impact as we can. So obviously the biggest goal in this whole project is to improve the road to better, to good or better than it was, obviously. Same attention to the properties. We've already made tremendous adjustments within those plans to help mitigate any kind of issues with homeowners. Whether it be, we'll say driveway entrance opening, additional driveway openings, understanding of perimeter drains coming back into the ditch that comes off there, we'll say up by the pump station. People have concerns about that. Loss of planters or gardens. Really trying to help understand the personal touch of that road too, the homeowner's perspective. Bring that into incorporation with what we have. So there may be somebody at the end of the day that will end up, unfortunately, they'll have more dirt that goes on their lawn from plowing that never happened before. We'll say. There will be some adjustments in driveways, absolutely.
And this road is to make sure that, so they don't have to post it, right? They're doing that criteria.
So number one, once we posted up to that industrial zone for sure. Secondly, obviously, is it's lost in my head. I'm sorry.
The quality of the road in the springtime. So the biggest problem with that road, I remember years ago, because we plow it. It's a state aid road, but Town Rangeley maintains it. And I remember, those speed bumps that Steve talked about. Imagine hitting those with a plow, hours on end. So
Oh, yeah.
you're now getting to look under the hood, so to speak, of what the problem really is with this road. The first day they started peeling the pavement off, people that we work with that live up there say, "What is going on with this road? It's all wet underneath." Well, that's the problem with the road. It's the driest time of year. It's wet underneath. You don't want that. You want it dry. So you're getting to see what the problems are.
It is rough.
Oh, yeah. One good thing about the reclaim is it won't be rough like that anymore. It'll be smooth. They'll be able to grade it. What they're grading right now is the base of the road. It's got rocks and so forth in it. It's hard to get a real fine grade on that. That's why you have that level of course. I'm talking along. So you're right. It is a little rough on that Friday, but they are grading it every day before they go. So.
And I'm really anxious to see those up by the Knight's house. That pipe is like 2 feet in the air.
Yeah, so
Will the water ever get that high? I mean,
I
can't wait to see what the end result's gonna be because
I'll speak that real quick. There was some personnel issues. I'll say that's not true. There was discrepancies within plans or GPS, use and how those were set initially. So they got reset. But again, there are, not saying that some of them aren't better right now, but there are sections of that road where that road's gonna come up. So they'll bring those ditches up with them or down with it as they come up through. Because what initially happened was they just put culverts in and kind of just scrub the ditches without trying to get to full depth right now. So they're definitely, some of them are definitely exaggerated.
Don't say stuff like that, please.
I'm not trying, we're getting corrected. There will not be a foot gap underneath those.
Right, that's the thing.
Now, outlet side,
I'm the one who said that.
outlet side, you'll have a small, I'll say punch pool, essentially on the outfall side of that will happen naturally anyway. But as that water flows in, you're gonna have a nice flush, level ditch line.
One last.
All right, one last thing, and then
Well-
Joe needs his reclaimed.
Yeah,
Approved
wait,
here.
some of this stuff is actually important because, 1 year down the road, if all of a sudden we're taking a flight in front of your father's house again, I will ask some serious questions even when I'm not a selectman. But steel will move under proper hydraulic pressure. You could put that reclaimed stuff and pack that thing till Jesus comes back again. Right, without removing the water, you're gonna have a frost problem. So that's the key from what I'm staring at. And that we don't deserve this. Never mind. We don't deserve this,
Thank you.
All right, so we need a motion. I'm not calling on you. I'm done. I'm just teasing. Go ahead.
That big huge pipe that goes, okay, so, by the old Wilcox house, which is now Ronnie Hayes' house. That thing goes out
Yeah, so-
almost in his field.
Right, so two things on that one. Again, one of the first ones that got set, we changed the plan since,
Okay,
so that should get cut back. But also remember it should get cut back, but also remember that road's gonna get wider, 10 feet, 5 foot either side of that paved. So what was an existing road currently, will have a 5-foot paved shoulder. Then you have a nice 3-1 slope, so you won't see as much when the road's finished, but that road
Okay.
also is extended further than it needs to be.
yeah, because I'm sitting at the one.
I went and measured it because I didn't believe you. I'm sorry, I'll tell you honestly, I didn't believe you.
I'm glad you did.
All right. All right, so how about a motion? How about a motion
What
to,
do you need for a motion? Just to allow you to do the motion to use reclaim instead of gravel or any other material?
yes,
So moved.
Moved on to change order yet.
no, we're not at the change order yet. I'm trying, Ethna, I'm trying. Okay, so Ethan's got a motion on the table to reclaim the existing pavement for base
I lieu of grade A.
in lieu of grade A, yes.
That's what I said.
That's what he said.
Second.
And Ethna seconds, thank you. All those in favor, I'm not asking for any more discussion. Okay. Change order, number 2, EL Vining for 4,507. Joe,
Madam Chair, looking for approval on this. Director Savage has touched on this already, actually. These are primarily customer relations adjustments. They're noted in the RFIs from the engineer. One, there was not an existing culvert that would have caused water backup. And then another one, which I was involved with, keeping on vacation, there was an abutter that had an existing drain, and it's the right thing to do to tie that into our culvert. And the third one, there was an outfall, handling an outfall station 22, so a drainage issue. So these are, as far as I know, these are actually done.
Correct.
But I just wanted you to formally see this, approve it. And as you know, the change orders lag the actual pay recs, so this will be reflected in pay rec 3.
How does that reflect on the tax burden for raising? Who's paying for this? This $4,000, is it coming out of the? Where are we taking the money?
It'll be paid for from the project.
road loan.
Good.
All right, need a motion.
Motion to approve change order number 2.
That's motion.
Second.
And Steve seconds. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is the overlook sidewalk, I'm sorry, yes, amendment number 2, the $30,000 increase. All right, so this is a $30,000 increase for engineering services solely, correct, Joe?
That is correct, Madam Chair. Yeah, specifically resident inspection services, the engineer's agent that was on the ground for the entirety of the project, really it extended, I believe, 4 weeks longer than we had expected. And of course, as you know, the days were longer than 8 hours, so it was something that was a necessary thing as far as I'm concerned with LAP projects. They require notes of everything that happens on site, the weather conditions, which contractors came, what pieces were used, how many yards, and so forth. So it's an important thing to have good resident inspections. Those are required to be kept on file and submitted when the project is closed out. So, Keith, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I should go first.
Oh, sorry.
Shelley, go ahead.
Okay, so who's paying the 30,000?
So the 30,000 again would come from the project. There's a cost share mechanism with this project. The state pays, I believe, 75, and the town picks up to 25. So the town, Madam Chair, pays the invoice, and then the state reimburses the percentage.
Shelley,
I'm gonna keep going.
May have the question I was gonna ask anyway.
Do we have a contingency on this? Like, there anything to protect us? I mean, what, we give people the bid because they come in at a certain dollar amount. I mean, getting a bill for $30,000, I find it hard to swallow, for one, and why wouldn't we be notified as they come rather than one lump bill? Oh, you're all done, and now here's our bill.
So my best answer for this one. So part of this obviously this being a 4-year project now, the 4th year of this project, between planning, engineering.
Yeah.
So obviously we have that, we have the state money. So obviously through, state has ultimate say in how this was designed and et cetera, et cetera. Knows we have our input, but state has to meet state criteria, et cetera, et cetera. We went into this spring, with this project, understanding that we had to be completed by July. Between hangups with the state, the contractor, got pushed back. Deadline got pushed back significantly, but they ended up going further. So with that said, with that more condensed timeline, so we were presented what was expected to be a 40-hour week. We, Joe and I held to not to exceed, or ideally not to exceed 40-45 hours a week for that resident inspector. What it came down to was looking at 60-70-hour weeks with an engineer, with our inspector up there that had to be up there again documenting every part of that. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're gonna see why soon that it was crucial that he was up there. But I will tell you right now is, the latest figures I have on this project right now, there are a couple models, how this comes forward to you eventually, as I figure some things out. But right now we are tracking under budget significantly. I would say $60,000 under budget realistically, safely. At this point right now in time. Obviously, there's still things that have to be fine tuned. Yes, that's with that $30,000 incorporated into a number. Obviously, $90,000 sounds better than 60, but we're still tracking under what we estimated in this project. Now, so the biggest reason for that cost though is the unexpected volume of hours that took place for this resident inspector. But very key and what we're going to discuss down the road.
No, she covered it.
Go ahead.
I thought I saw a contingency on this whole project. Wasn't there one on the,
I think there was one stated on the.
There is a contingency. I don't have that in front of me, Madam Chair.
so the funds could actually come out of that contingency unless the actual estimate for the whole project was over the original
Right.
presentation, and then we had to dip into the contingency.
Right, so Madam Chair, we're not in the contingency territory yet, I don't believe. As Keith noted, we're still, in a minute, you're gonna get to a pay rack, I think, for 205, and then there'll be a remaining balance of 400,000 plus or minus. There is, Keith alluded to it, just to clarify, the engineer, Keith and I, and the contractor are working through a soft dispute about the interpretation of some of the quantities and how they were perceived. So we're working through that. As Keith touched upon, it is in our favor that we have a resident inspector there for that reason and for all reasons throughout the entire project. That is one of the things they teach you in the LAP schools, that you've got to have a resident inspector on these projects. You've got to know what quantities are coming, kind of a clerk of the works, really. You got to know what's coming and going. Don't believe we're in contingency territory yet. The state share cap is 525,785. The net town share is 277,863. That I can tell you, because I have it in front of me. And what we budgeted for this is 332,443. So subtract 277 from 332, that's the 60 that we're talking about. So we're projected to be at or near budget. So I don't believe we're into the contingency area yet.
I guess I agree. I echo Shelley's sentiments that, getting a $30,000 bill after the fact, when, there really wasn't any, discussion as to how this project was proceeding engineering wise, This really leaves a bad taste. And and I don't know if the board wants to wait to approve it till we see what information you have to present as far as justifying this. Or, you know, or if there are any other questions or comments regarding the extra 30,000 in engineering services. Go ahead, Ethan.
I agree the inspection's important because, but, was this extra money, any of this discussed during those weekly road meetings? Did Jeff or anybody say, hey?
I think we heard about it at the last meeting, Madam Chair.
That we were tracking, yeah, so essentially before the walkthrough we had recently, we brought up that point that we were tracking over the hours that were allotted. So to speak, you know, until you said it, do I agree that how it's presented to us, that's not, do I definitely, it would have been nice to have that tracker almost a weekly basis, I'm saying, you know, we're approaching that, you know, $100 mark or whatever. I don't disagree with that at all. So I can correct it on my end, you know, in a future project, that doesn't help the $30,000 discrepancy we have right now, but I can obviously my own, you know, learn from this and obviously help ask that question as we move forward, tracking outside individuals' hours and needs of ours.
So do we know for sure that the state is going to agree to cost share this?
We haven't asked that question specifically, but it is an approved expense, or an approved type of expense. We can get you a definitive answer for sure if you'd like. I'm confident of it, but if you'd like it to double check, we can do that the next meeting.
I'd like yeah, some verification considering what we've gone through with the airport project. Does the board wish to vote, or do you want to table it till next meeting?
I say there's enough question about it, we can table it till next meeting, and if they end up getting their 30 grand next meeting, they'll get it next meeting, but it sounds like there's enough question about it.
Do you need a motion to table it, considering it's a, you know, financial request, or is it just good for, you know?
Probably would be in order to table it till the dates are, see you next meeting.
Okay,
If we vote to do that.
vote to do that,
Yeah.
okay, so Ethan's motion to table the $30,000 change order until the next meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Shelley seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And you've got 5-0 in favor, okay. Sidewalk, all right, page 2, consent items continued. We've got M&H request for 205, 361.98. It's been broken out.
Madam Chair, I move the M&H request of 205, 361.98, the overlook sidewalk project.
Steve's motion and Ethan seconds. Comments, questions? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Next is the purchasing agreement for the Trio payroll software, which helps the time clock produce what it needs to produce. Joe, this is sole source is what you're telling us.
That's correct, Madam Chair. This is actually the purchase agreement for the software attachment, if you will. It is the one that coordinates or works with the Trio program. Because it is the one that they use and they recommend, it really is kind of a sole source. And because it's more than $5,000 per policy, I don't have the authority to just purchase it sole source. I need to bring it to your attention and have your authorization to conduct the purchase. As you recall, just as a little more information, we talked about this during the budget process. It was approved by the budget committee, by the board, and then ultimately it was approved at town meeting, not individually, but as part of the entire overall budget. So It's been approved at that level, now it needs to be approved at this level where we actually make the transaction. Because it is sole source, that's why I'm bringing it to your table. And I do recommend the purchase. Madam Chair.
All right. Shelley,
Where are the extra funds coming from?
What was the question?
where are the extra
The
funds?
extra funds coming from?
Extra funds.
It's a budgetary item, so what do you mean extra funds? Yeah. We budgeted the money, I'm asking what do you mean extra?
I don't think,
We only budgeted 5,000, right?
I believe we budgeted the total, the 67.
I thought we only did the 5,000.
You can grab that, please. It's on the shelf, bookshelf, the black binder. Big one.
Memory serves us somewhere around 12,000, I thought, wasn't it?
I think it's 67.
67?
I think so.
Did we combine all the computers this year? I thought we did.
Well, there was we had to wait, we had to get the time clock approved first, within the budget, and
Right.
then this. This I didn't think was a known amount, but I,
No, it was a prospectus, a
Okay.
range. That's my memory, I could be wrong with this. While they're looking this up, anybody find $1,200 a day plus travel with extravagant? I'm going, I'm in the wrong damn business.
Yeah.
I know this is proprietary and they designed it, but holy.
yeah, no, it's a chunk.
Maybe
Trio's
that's something we
Trio's
should
got the
think about
corner.
too going forward, is when we're hiring engineers to be a part of that.
So while he's looking this up, it's this, we outsource payroll already, right?
No, Madam Chair, we did for a while, but it's done.
Oh, so we brought it back in-house.
Yeah. The software would basically employees would be expected to log in and out electronically. It will help us keeping track of benefit hours, vacation hours, and those things. It would be helpful to the payroll people, definitely.
While Joe was looking, let's, Bailey's here, we'll just skip over that for a moment. We've got the planning fee updates, and Bailey, thank you for the memo. It sounds like it's been a while since the planning fees have been updated. You want to give us a little history?
Yeah, they were last updated, I believe it was 2012, if I'm remembering correctly, with the provision that, 2012 with the provision that fees are to be reviewed by the board each January. I have not seen anywhere where it's been reviewed at all since then, so I'd like to re-up that provision with this and keep up with that. With this, I did research across towns similar to Rangeley, larger than Rangeley, smaller than Rangeley. just to see kind of what the range is. I have fielded quite a few comments about permit fees and the price, so I felt, especially with the amount of permits that we're doing at this point, that it was fair to kind of lower this price closer to what the average was across the board from what I found.
So it looks like, for finished space, you know, it's been increased or, okay, so wait a minute. The red is current, okay. And so the unfinished space increases slightly. So these funds, these funds that are associated with building permits, are they considered revenue that helps to fund your budget line?
Yes.
We're talking where you're, you know, where you're at, where were you at last year for revenue, or don't you remember?
Joe and I looked at those numbers actually, and we were reaching close to that 75% mark of revenue covering the budget line. And I've already asked the total number of permits that we did in 2020 at this point of this year. So I feel that we're comfortable to still meet that. Especially if you look, there are some new fees that I have put in here. Missed inspections fee is a big one. I'm having a tough time getting people to call for their inspections.
Okay.
So I feel that that's very important. The main point of this really is the building permit fees, making it a lot easier for our contractors to be able to estimate and give their clients a price for what their permit is going to be. Right now, the fees, the equation is somewhat complicated. It doesn't always work out perfectly for what they estimate it to be, and I just wanted to make it straightforward across all different types of construction.
That missed inspection fee of $50, you can't make that hurt a little bit more?
I thought about it.
I mean,
about it.
it's a phone call. I mean, come on, they can,
Right.
you know, that's, anyway, just a thought. Does the board have any feedback for Bailey? Yeah, go ahead, Shelley.
So on the recreational vehicle permit, so is that if they leave their recreational vehicle parked on their property all year? Because I've got a lot of people complaining about the recreational vehicles.
So recreational vehicles, that's a 2-week permit. At that point, it needs to be removed from the property and it can be brought back on the property for another 2-week period, put in a different location. They have to re-up that permit anytime they do that. I also do the recreational vehicle permits in conjunction with building permits, so they can stay in a camper as long as they have active construction happening. And that's when they can have a camper more permanently on the property. This is properties without a dwelling. If you have a dwelling and you have someone staying in a camper on your property, that's a little bit different.
Okay.
That's an existing one. Right now, we're charging people our minimum fee of $35, which I felt was excessive for the 2 minutes that it takes to look at all those permits.
Right.
That only lasts 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Bailey?
Steve, make a face.
Steve, what are you making faces for?
I enjoyed it over there a little bit more than I enjoyed here because anyways, I don't understand this recreational vehicle thing. There are currently in Viewshed, my normal daily travels in my town, 5 different recreational moving trailers, campers. and they haven't moved all summer. Well, explain to me the process.
Well, honestly, I haven't been paying attention to campers on people's
No,
property.
wait a minute, let me start again. I don't want this to turn into this, or you're doing something bad. I want to understand where we're moving henceforth with this, because there are some that have enjoyed a wonderful summer with a great view of Saddleback every day. You know, lights on at night, and fine, and I don't have a problem with it, but if we have an ordinance that says, you know, these have to move, how do we? And NA means we're not gonna charge, or it's not changing?
Right now, it's, honestly, it's not on the fee schedule right now. A lot of people aren't even aware that it is a permit,
Mm-hmm.
which is where a lot of the trouble comes from. Right now, it's, if people come to me and ask me about it, basically if they see it somewhere here, or ask me about putting a camper on the property, and I tell them, is our minimum building permit fee of $35, just because I don't have anything else to go off of.
Well, Tom Lillis had one on right down the street here where the town square was some time ago, and he had to go over and ask him, you gotta move it, you can't park it here also. So,
I have had one this summer that I have told to do that as well.
yeah, and
One that I was made aware of by a complaint.
yeah, well, again, this isn't a complaint session, I just wanna understand this a little bit better.
Right.
Okay, and I think you know what I'm referring to with.
Right,
Yeah, so-
I mean, because I have,
As we move forward here, you want some authority, you want a fee structure that gives you some authority to manage how these are done. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Well, I think $15 is a joke. I mean, look at it, if you're gonna go to a KOA campground, $50 a day. So $15 for 2 weeks is peanuts. That's why I'm staring at it, so.
No, it's a good point. Shelley, you had.
so yes, because I know that somebody complained about, one of my family members who had a bunch of friends come over, and there were 3 campers on her property. It's only for the weekend, but, Tom also investigated that, and my sister's like, yeah, they were only here for a weekend, that was it. So, and then my neighbor, Ronnie Haynes, he keeps his on his lot all year round, because then when the winter comes and gets his house all locked up, he's heading on that. So that's different, right?
So storing a camper
Yeah.
on your property has nothing to do with an RV permit.
Versus
An RV
living on it.
permit is when you're staying in the camper.
Okay, perfect.
Like
All right.
on a vacant lot, you know, during.
On a vacant lot, yes.
Perfect.
I mean, do you want more time to review this? So you.
No, I go with the recommendations, I'm just saying, as you keep staring at this thing and bump it forward, I would look at that one a little different, that's the only,
Okay,
thank you. Really good.
so you need a motion for us to approve these suggested permit changes, is that it?
Yes, if you're comfortable doing so.
I do have a question, do we have the authority to change that, or does this have to go to the governing body?
Go ahead.
We are responsible for fee schedules.
Yeah.
It's written in something. I'm so sorry, I can't remember what
Chapter
right now.
3A.
Thank you, honey. It's written somewhere. We are responsible for fee
I
schedules.
move Bailey's presentation.
All right, Steve's motion to approve and Shelley seconds. Any further discussion? Yes, Joe.
Madam Chair, just one more point. I was researching that. I wanted to make sure that it came up to request for this to be effective immediately. And then revisit it each January,
Okay.
beginning in January of 2023.
23.
So we wouldn't bother revisiting, we wouldn't recommend that you bother revisiting this 3 months from now. Revisit
Right.
15 months from now and get back on the
See a
rotation.
full building season with this
Yep.
fee schedule.
Okay,
What he said in my motion.
all right, so it's amended to be effective immediately, and still
Thank you.
Shelley's second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you, Bailey. Okay, going back, yes, Joe.
Going back, Madam Chair, thank you for your patience and thank you for allowing me to go backwards on the agenda slightly. The amount in Department Division 01006 3509 software for $6,927. That was moved forward.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if I thought it was just sticking in my head.
And that was based on the original proposal, which I don't have in front of me, but this is one that Marty helped me with. She helped me get this updated within the last month or so, so this is still valid. It's dated the current one, so it's only-
So you need a motion.
Need a motion?
6,300,
Yes.
motion to purchase, for Joe to make this purchase, in the amount of $6,300.
Ethan's motion
Second.
and Steve seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. The Stephen A. B. Memorial Stone. So Joe, why don't you go ahead and discuss that? Looks like this came out of Airport Commission.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. It was actually a proposal that was brought pre-COVID. COVID kind of slowed things down. It's been picked up more recently. The Bean family has offered to supply a plaque, a stone. I think one of the stones that's up there could be used for the plaque. And they're going to coordinate most of the labor for this. That's part of their proposal. The plaque would have some words in memory of Stephen Bean, who obviously you know the airport was named after him. The family would like to donate the plaque material and would like the board to consider accepting that as a gift at the airport. The location more specifically would be the sign that went up 5 or 6 years ago. There's a Lieutenant Taylor monument right underneath the sign now. The idea, the recommendation from the Airport Commission, which was good, acceptable to the proposers, was to put that on one side and the Stephen A. Bean stone and plaque on the opposite side. So that is what has been recommended by the Airport Commission, and they would like your consideration of a vote to allow that to happen. I would add to that in my conversation with Keith, while the hood's open, so to speak, if you're okay with maybe reorientating that sign slightly so it points a little bit more towards the entrance to the airport, we'd like to maybe do that while that happens, while that's in progress. But that's the request from the Bean family. The formal portion was the first part of that soliloquy, and the second part was, we might like to adjust it a little bit while it was open.
Is it, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you gonna work in conjunction with them to do that with the town crew?
At this point, I think contractors related to the Bean family will be doing some of the heavy lifting. The town crew would fill in the gaps.
That's up, I just wanna make sure that, Madam Chair, I move that we accept this very, very nice gift and updating of the airport sign and rocks that display and plaques that display two very, very fine individuals at the airport, Stephen A. Bean and Lieutenant Taylor.
Steve's motion, thank you, and Ethan seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, and that's just unanimous.
I want to, let's make fun of hotel, but I want to, just a vision in my mind. Joe primed it, I'm gonna go off on this a little bit real quick. So obviously, with this approval, and I think it's extremely fitting for that establishment, you know, moving the sign, but what I see now as we move forward, the town crew, and we look at, you know, town assets and stockpiles and stuff, but I think now, once you have this wonderful sign and these stones, access to them becomes a little more advantageous. You know, and I think we need to look at I don't want to call it a park, I don't want to call it a gathering spot, but access, you know, establishing a small road into that, because there's open space right there anyway. Not gonna say rectangle thing, but a couple benches, just something people can appreciate those two individuals and those stones. Because right now it's walking across the grass, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think having a little more of a focal aesthetic aspect of that would be very appropriate, in my opinion.
Something to discuss in the future.
Correct. That was yes, not for anything now, but I think as we plan forward, I think it's a nice little place to have a big table or something, you know, whatever. People can appreciate those individuals and understand the history of those.
Steve,
I think Keith brings up a very good point in regards to safety and then plugging up the driveway getting, or the road getting into the airport with people parking there. If we could put something in terms of a small parking area behind the sign with access from Hangar Drive, that would meet the needs. If we could do that to little to no cost with detritus that's coming off the roads and such, I would be in favor of that.
Future agenda, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I love the idea. I think it's fabulous. Don't get me wrong. My concern is FAA regulations. They get a little pissy when you start talking about putting stuff in their arena. I've seen it a million times.
I'll definitely, I also, we have to go through all that,
Okay,
permission.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's a good point.
But again,
Especially when you
future
talk about-
thinking, future thinking.
Okay, thank you. There is, yes,
Speaking of the airport, do we have, like, so if someone comes just to park their plane for the day, do we charge them a fee?
Tie downs.
Not for one day, Madam Chair. It's, I think they gotta be there for 2 weeks.
For how many weeks?
I think it's 14 days. I'd have to reference the paperwork, but I believe it's gotta be 14 consecutive days.
So someone could come here for a 2-week vacation and park for free.
I would want to have an opportunity to double check that, but yes, I believe that's the case.
I'm just like trying to think of other ways to earn income. And so do we have some kind of cameras or anything to see, like, because a lot of people are asking how now with the extension, how many people are using it? I mean, no one's up there to police it, so I didn't know if we had any cameras up there or.
so can we, given the sensitive time we've got going on, Steve Langsdorff has got a 9 o'clock, can we put
Okay,
that on a
fine.
future agenda? Because I think, because I think it's in our master plan. I remember Stantec saying that airport's supposed to make as much money for itself as possible. Okay, so future agenda item, thank you, Shelley. I don't think, we don't have any correspondence, no old business, new in business, we've got section 10 RFPs for the winter sand bid, and we've got one.
I move M&H's at 11.49 per cubic yard, totaling $34,470.
Steve's motion, Ethan seconds. Yes,
How much of it, where does that sit with last year's number?
It's $1 a yard, $1 more per yard, I believe, Madam Chair.
any other questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's unanimous. We then have two fuel bids. SK Quality Fuels, that bid was received. And they're at $2.65 per gallon for number 2 and $3.15 a gallon for kerosene. Dead River comes in at $2.44.5 per gallon for number 2 and $2.91.5 for kerosene.
Make a motion to award the fuel bid to Dead River being lower.
Ethan's motion,
Second.
and Shelley seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? And all those opposed? All right, so we've got 3 in favor, 1 opposed. Steve, did you vote?
Yeah, I did, but I pulled my hand down. I have a problem with, I have had problems for years when you have a local tax-paying resident, multiple homes, multiple businesses, when there are a few cents difference and we don't honor that for an out-of-town entity. So that's my shtick.
Yep.
But majority rules, I understand.
It's low bid. It's what the taxpayers expect.
I'm sorry, it's not what the taxpayers expect, because there have been on several occasions where we have taken the higher bid for the history with the client who has given us the bid because they are local versus out of town. I've watched us do it numerous times, so
Yeah.
please don't use that as the argument.
It's been the most recent practice anyway. So Steve, are you, what's your vote?
No,
Okay, so we've got 3 for and 2 against. The F-250. So we have got, Joe received a bid from Bessie Motors, and Joe, I'll let you take this.
Madam Chair, the one bid that came in for this truck, which would be a replacement for the highway foreman truck. One bid that came in my opinion, was substantially non-responsive. I do appreciate them taking the time to put it together. It was nicely compiled. However, it was a truck that really wasn't what we're looking for. It was a single cab. And really, that's the big difference. You're looking for something that's got, a cab in the back. I think we would have entertained other brands, but we certainly weren't looking for anything that was smaller than an extended cab. So I would recommend rejecting that bid.
It was an inaccurate bid, is what you're saying. It wasn't what you asked for.
It wasn't substantially what we were looking
That's what we're to it.
for. It was nicely put together, and would send them a nice thank you. And appreciate their efforts, and please make it out.
Please let them know it didn't meet our requirements, Ethan.
One question, do you think the reason you only got one bid is the same reason no one can find a car a lot, this computer chip debacle?
Keith and I talked about that. That's probably part of it. And we talked about all kinds of things to do with that, but at this juncture, I would recommend rejecting this bid, keep going, go back to the drawing board.
All right, so we need a motion.
Motion to reject the bid.
It's motion
Second.
and Ethna seconds.
Madam Chair,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
don't think you can have a negative motion. I think you make the motion and then vote it down. Or maybe, but Robert's rules, if my memory serves, if positive motions, you vote them down. Come on, Smarty Pants, you know the answer.
I just got
Hold
the
on.
cheat sheet here.
Hold on.
I mean, I don't want to accept the bid, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have the cheat sheet too.
Yeah, that's what I have as well. Well, just to play it on the safe side, we can. We vote.
Did you get a second?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yes,
said second, yeah.
yeah.
Now we have
Yeah,
to
Let's vote on it, we'll do it differently next time. But
Yeah, I think we're,
it's ringing true in your head too, I know it is. I can
it is,
see it.
it's in the,
I don't have it here. but-
Yeah. well, we can always amend the motion at a future meeting if it's necessary, can't we? Yeah, I mean, the intent,
The intent is clear to me, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
It's to reject it.
yeah. But yeah, I've got the cheat sheet, so we'll go with the vote.
If it's not something that you asked for in the specs that you asked for. Because there's vehicles, there's like no trucks available right now, anyway. And they are making an offer on something that is not something that you want, is it something that has to be rejected?
If it didn't meet our specs.
I'm not disagreeing with you, all I'm
Right.
saying is a negative motion.
Is not permitted.
Hmm?
Is not permitted per
Thank you,
Robert's
Carl.
rules of order.
Can I rescind the motion?
Yes,
I rescind the motion.
okay, so Shelley,
I was in second.
Can we move?
I think
Move that we
Shelley's
don't want
point
the truck.
was, do we even need a motion on
Right.
something
Right.
No,
that it
It's not what
doesn't,
we asked.
isn't what we asked for?
We're allowed to reject anything that comes through a request for a bid.
But I think for the sake of transparency, Joe would like this disclosed.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. I would
Discussed.
rather not be in the business of having a bid in my desk that never got to the board. In
Yeah.
good faith, this person submitted it to the town. I expect to see it through the process.
Right,
Even if it was not something that we're
thanks
interested
for
in
the
pursuing.
I move Bessie Motor Sales bid of 35,071.29.
Steve's motion, no one needs to second it.
Second
second,
it, we vote it
second,
down.
then we vote it down,
Okay.
that's, yeah.
All right, so do we
Right.
have a second?
I second.
Okay, so Shelley seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
She's done.
Whew, all right, town manager, department head updates, Joe.
Madam Chair, so in your packets, the customary updates. Bailey's put together a really nice update for us, and she's at 100 running permits for county of 21.
Wow.
You got confetti?
177 calls for service in the police department. Chief Bacon's stats are in there also for the fire department. Tracy, do you have anything?
No. Shocked me that you said
Oh, Assistant department heads might have an update. Bailey, Chief?
All I would say, it's, I think it's all aware of it already, but I'm proud to say that we finally gotten 3 of the wayfinding highway signs in. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a discrepancy with some of the imagery or
So,
context of the area, but we'll have those, semi-corrected tomorrow. And in hopes to install the remaining 4 signs, 5 signs tomorrow.
so just in case you hear it on the street, so I got a call today from the Sandy River Town office when the wayfaring sign went up and it said, "Welcome to Range Lane." At the entrance of the Sandy River Town,
Definitely did put 2 and 2 in our minds when we're erecting those signs. Obviously, if we're doing step by step, and I didn't even think twice about it until Joe enlightened me.
Yeah, so I got,
But in Keith's defense, Madam Chair, we pulled out the schematic and it did show that in that location. That's what came from the DOT.
Okay.
He did exactly.
Okay.
Those guys have been looking at it for months, so just,
Sure.
they were looking at it.
I'll go one step further with that one, as our Joe, but I will tell you, I called Sam from Signworks this afternoon to get the remaining signs I need, and he had a very comical response of, they've been looking at these for 2 years, they've been approved for 2 years. They have this imagery and everything, it never caught anybody's mind about putting these in the outskirts of town and having different, different towns labeled on it.
But moral of the story, Madam Chair, I mean, obviously you and I are involved in the conversation and I spoke with Sandy River. So here's my takeaway. I should find a little humor in it with that a little bit, but my takeaway is we saw something that, really didn't look right. We communicated with each other.
Yeah.
We're gonna fix the problem. That's what I see in this exercise. It worked.
yeah, it didn't work. It
So,
didn't work. It was,
and we got a couple of laughs out of it.
go ahead.
And I also notified Kate, I left her a message saying, Houston, we have a problem. And so she is now aware, and she's like, they've been, like, she said the same thing, they have been approved for ever now.
Yeah.
And reviewed, so, yeah.
I would have sworn nature was telling me today to leave it on the ground anyway, because I had to reset that. We as a team took 3 hours on that one side to get it to sit flush, plumb and everything, because we hit more rocks, everything in that ground down there. And never caught on to the idea of what it said.
Yeah, well, anyway, so that's been resolved. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for your response. But anyway, so that was, did you have more for your
That's probably the gist of it. I mean, everything, we're all hands-on with the signs. Obviously, Rich and the transfer station crew are very busy. They have pulled some numbers out this weekend of July numbers. I mean, so busiest weekend on record in September ever. So, and then hands down to them, they're doing a great job, and we just need to keep moving forward with there. Other than that, we're on the fall schedule, so line cleaning will start next week. So everybody that does have property in town, understand that we will be coming through. Keep your toilet seats down, please.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Joe?
That's it for department head updates. Madam
Okay,
Chair.
all right, so we have, let's see here, the road loan review coming up September 20th, the quarterly meeting in Dallas Plantation on September 27th will be at 6 o'clock. The town office will be closed October 1st for the MMA convention if it happens in person. We've got performance evaluation to schedule for Joe. Make sure that you pull the evaluation from your selectmen folders and take them with you. We'll schedule that sometime in October. 2021 Homeland Security Grant, Joe?
Just a quick update, Chief French is applying for a Homeland Security grant for some body cameras and associated docking stations. He's working with Tim Hardy of Franklin County EMA. Actually, Chief Bacon is helping him with this too. So that's just really an FYI. The total is $5,150. I don't believe that's a matching grant.
Want to continue down broadband?
Shelley's got something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Shelley?
So you only had 2, how come you're not ordering 3? Sorry.
Oh, God. I believe he's looking for 5, Madam Chair.
I see 3.
His letter indicates 5.
I'll call it
5,
Yeah, if you
and
want.
a body, 2 cameras.
Is that the title of it? Acts on Body 2
Mhm.
cameras.
Yeah, if you look at the quote, Madam Chair, which
Okay.
is towards the back of that package, it's 5, quantity of 5 for camera assembly.
All right. Thank you, Shelley. All right, Joe, any broadband?
Very quick broadband update based on the email that's in there, and we all had a chance to look at it. But for the public, we did, or CCI did, in combination with Connect Maine, submit our proposal as part of a greater statewide proposal to the NTIA. Just for full disclosure, the funding available is just under 300 million. Nationally, there were 280 applications that total 2.5 billion. It's going to be a competitive process, but we're confident that it's a good application. But this does, tell me as a planner or as a plan, let's not lose sight of our contingency and talk about that at our quarterly meetings at the end of September, so that we have the plan B that we talked about through so many meetings.
Yeah. Alright.
Yep, hold on,
Yes.
That said, I'll try to remember to do it myself, but would you please reach out to Steve Power and whoever else is the other assessor to try to get more than just the lead assessor for Braintree Plantation at this meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Good luck. Good.
That was really the update on that, Madam Chair. If you don't mind, I'll go to cemetery.
Go ahead.
I'll make this really quick too. I just want to thank Keith and his crew for the tremendous amount of work they put in the summer, making that place really come to life. Really making that, really making a lot of progress. I did not mean to say that. Really making a lot of progress. As you recall, there was a pile of road material from Allen Street there. There were a lot of stumps. They got all the stumps out. Allen Street's pushed over. And the thing I really want to share is that it looks great, but also it's to kind of fill in the gaps, keep this coordinated with Biden to see if we can get some of that base material from Boone Lake to kind of fill the gaps, keep this thing cost effective. So that's really the update there. We did meet as a group with Chip, Rebecca, Keith, and myself the other day, talked about things like that, cemetery related things in terms of planning and the software system and so forth. So we're paying attention to the cemetery. And then the executive committee results are in there in your packet. One thing, Madam Chair, if I could request that the board consider scheduling a public hearing for September 20th with the GA ordinance. That's a full ordinance as opposed to just the Tennessee.
Sorry about that, I skipped over that. Yes, we need to schedule a public hearing for the general assistance ordinance adoption. But let's go ahead and,
We can do that at 6 o'clock, that would be fine.
okay.
Or 6,
Well, it's gonna be
yeah,
6:30.
6, yeah, make it at like, yes.
Just make it immediate.
Immediately follow this one at 6, exactly. Yep.
You need a motion?
Yes, please.
I move we schedule the public hearing for general assistance ordinance adoption for September 20th, immediately following the public hearing at 6 PM for dangerous building in Cary Road.
Steve's motion.
Second.
And Ethan seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? And that is unanimous. All right, that's it for the town manager report. Moving on to select board communications. Steve, you got anything?
No.
Ethan?
No.
Shelley? No. And Ethna?
So sorry, yes, builder supply crosswalk, whatever came out of that conversation you had with them, and I'm so sorry to, I know it's gonna be the unpopular opinion, but have we levied any fines? Have we, they took action against the town essentially by putting down a sidewalk, a crosswalk up there?
Correct, so, I'll be on this one, we gave them a grace period, which has also expired by now, to work with, what we anticipated was to work with the striping company that came up, anticipated, report judgment, they've yet to do so. We'll, at this point now, have to get those options, whether it's levy the fines or demand, a letter also demanding that immediate, however that has to be structured, I don't know.
And I mean, I begrudge no one getting their crew safely back and forth to work. It's the fact that they went in direct contradiction of the process that they put themselves in and that is required in order to get a crosswalk. So they're in direct violation of it, and as such, as a business owner in the town of Rangeley, need to be held to the standard that implicates that kind of action.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Thank you, Ethna.
I do have one thing. Don't let me say this wrong. I'm just gonna be quick about it. We formed an informal committee. I say we, Keith, myself, I can't remember the guy's name from out of town, Jim Quimby, Al Clinch. It's a memorial committee.
Veterans Committee.
Thank you.
Veterans Memorial.
At some point, we're probably going to want to become a formal committee, whatever process that entails. And that's all I'm gonna say.
Great Wheeler.
Regularly.
So is the local veterans,
So the hard, yeah, so real quick on that one, there's, it's called VFW or Legion.
right?
Rangeley's Legion is technically active for the state, but there's no active members.
Okay.
So, obviously, that's not what we would have as a town committee. I did see note somewhere in my notes that there was at one time, or should be, a veterans, I would say a monument committee. Just as he stated. So it should be an active committee anyway. We have more than enough volunteers right now that would be willing to do so. And I hope we can hopefully formalize that now. So there's a tremendous amount of, I'll say concern, on one hand for that monument in its current state and the work that it needs, obviously, and then obviously the necessary names that need to be added. And then obviously there is no, our part right now, there's no formal written rule for that current monument. So we're trying to go off of who's Jimmy Quimby was a huge member of that original committee, or not the original, but the last committee that was on there. So nothing's documented. We're all past practice in that same case and how requirements are to be on that wall. So we'll leave it at that for now until we talk further about that organized committee.
There are rules to that because you have to actually be a resident of Rangeley at the time you were in the service. That's what my father was
We're
told.
going through all that in this committee. That's the point of the committee.
But
Nothing's in stone.
maybe there is, but we can't find anything.
Right.
Between Frenchie's notes, Jimmy's notes, nothing right now is anywhere. So I'm still searching downstairs, for department. There was definitely, it was brought up before about how that was worded, verbally, but again, can't find anything written. So we're trying to stay off of whatever the consensus was, whether similar to that, obviously.
What's your neighbor? Is she still come up to visit?
Trisha Quinn?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's,
Already reached out.
yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest. Trisha's now in Norwalk.
Already reached out.
I'm trying to think who was here. Jim Stone was here, you know, for a discussion on that veterans monument. Ed Innes has passed.
I reached out to him too, but unresponsive.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because they're just seeing, but yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
check with my father on who told him that the rules were,
Absolutely.
that he,
Please
because
do.
he was drafted from, and as was at Stratton at the time.
Right.
He can't be on this one.
Yeah, but by no means we're nowhere near being finished with research.
Yeah.
We've had 2 meetings from one side.
As the daughter of a veteran, I just want to thank you.
All right. I don't have anything. All right, so I need a motion to go into executive session with legal counsel.
That's just that one question.
Oh, yeah.
We need a motion to ask for the town office to close for the MMA convention. We didn't do that.
Completely up to you. It's operational in my view. I mean, make people.
Just wanted to make sure.
We'll post it.
All right, motion needed for legal counsel.
Make a motion, Madam Chair, make a motion, we enter executive session pursuant MRSA Title 1, Chapter 13, Subchapter 145.456D, labor negotiation. We have to do 2 separate ones, don't we? Excuse me.
Yeah, we do.
4056E, consultation with legal counsel.
Ethan's motion,
Second.
Shelley seconds. All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, I'll declare us out from executive session. There's no action to be taken by the board. I think that was information only.
Okay.
So we now need a motion to go into executive session for labor negotiation update. Need to cite the specific.
Madam Chair, make a motion to go into executive session, MRSA Title 1, Chapter 13, Subchapter 4056D, labor negotiation.
Motion,
Second.
and Steve seconds. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Got the other? All right, we'll declare us out.
To adjourn.
All right, we're out of executive session, no action to take.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Steve's motion, Shelley seconds, all those in favor? And that's a wrap.